Capacity Building Alliance of Sustainable Investment, and also in the subname ahead of Accelerate Sustainable Finance and the Bankable projects creation in developing countries. So thank you very much for coming. I'm Chen Ling from the Beijing Institute of Finance and Sustainability. We're so happy to have very full house for today's event, and also this event is live streamed through YouTube. So a lot of our CASI members are also watching on that. This afternoon session will have 3 parts with welcome remarks, with the introduction and our launching ceremony, as well as a panel discussion and category and member speeches. So we have a hard stop at 2 p.m., so I won't go through into deep details. Let's directly go to the first session of today's event. And let me welcome Dr. Ma Jun, who is the president of Beijing Institute of Finance and Sustainability, to deliver the welcome remarks. Dr. Ma.
Thank you, Chen Ling. Sir Danny Alexander, Madam Chu Jun, Madam Jenny McLean, Madam Marisa Zhu, Mr. Paul Modi, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of Institute of Finance and Sustainability, I would like to welcome all of you for attending this CASI launching event and the roundtable discussion on capacity building. CASI is a short form of Capacity Building Alliance of Sustainable Investment, which aims to become the global aggregator and distributor of sustainable finance knowledge for emerging markets and developing economies. As of today, 42 organizations have signed up as CASI members. As I said to many of you before, this CASI is motivated by 3 factors. Number 1, globally, we already have a consensus that capacity building is a key to scale up green finance in developing country emerging markets. In fact, the G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group, which I used to co-chair, has come to the conclusion that we need to mobilize more resources and better coordinate on capacity building. And secondly, we have a good basis of running the CASI. In fact, my team at IFS has already operated a capacity building program which trained 4,500 people in the last 5 years. And the third major factor is that we're getting very, very strong support from CASI members. In fact, I was telling Danny, in the last few months, we reached out to 50 potential members, and 42 have signed up as of today. And our membership is growing by week. So this enthusiasm is actually way beyond my expectation, and we are very encouraged by the strong support from member and potential members. Today, we have actually most of the founding members here in the room to join this launch event, and we have some Category B members who will be talking about the needs for capacity building in that jurisdiction. I'd like to give a special thanks to Sir Danny, VP of AIB, to arrange this venue for us and also support us in launching the CASI and giving us a lot of advice and connecting us to donors. And we're actually looking forward to collaboration with AIB and many other partners going forward. So without further ado, let me invite Sir Danny to give us opening remarks as well. Need to be closer to Mike.
Yeah, I'm a little bit tall for this microphone, so I have to crouch a little to be heard, especially with the competing event in just over the wall. So, look, it's a great honor for us as AIB to host this event in our pavilion. Welcome, I should say, to the AIB pavilion. And I'd particularly like to extend our really deep appreciation to you, Dr. Ma Jun, and the Institute for Finance and Sustainability. I think what you're trying to do, what you're doing now with CASI, building this amazing range of partners, is extraordinary. And I think you're really to be congratulated. So well done. We're here to celebrate the launch, but also to learn more about CASI and about the importance of capacity building. And I think that, you know, as you said, in the G20 and elsewhere, the need for capacity building has been rightly emphasized. I mean, there are many barriers to the speed and scale of transition that is necessary, and that can include financial risk, it can include policy environments, but it also very much includes local capacity, the capacity of institutions, financial institutions, the capacity of project developers and so forth. And so strengthening capacity building is really essential if we are to achieve the transition at the speed and scale that is necessary. So for AIB, we will be supporting CASI. We will be taking part. I know we're still discussing the exact modalities, but we really want to support you, not just through this event, but through becoming an active participant in your work and working with your partners. Because I think not just for AIB, but for all of the multilateral institutions, this kind of initiative to build capacity is absolutely essential to achieving all of our goals. So I won't talk anymore. Suffice to say that we think this is important. We're delighted to have you here, and we look forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ma, and also Sir Danny, for your welcome remarks. Now let me invite Dr. Ma to give a more detailed introduction to CASI on its work plan and also the governance structure. Dr. Ma.
I think I'll spend maybe 7-8 minutes in running through some of the key points of CASI structure, the target audience, and how we're going to structure the contents and deliver them. Can you flip it for me? Yeah. Okay, background. As many of you know, green finance has been developing rapidly in the last 10 years, but most of the sizable transactions, I can say, still happening in OECD countries and China. The rest of emerging markets, which needs a few $1 trillion per year for climate action, actually still yet to green their financial system. And that's why the G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group is calling for a better coordination and more mobilization of support for capacity building for emerging markets and developing economies. And these are a few reasons why the existing capacity building programs, which are already happening, are not sufficient. Number one, lack of resources. Not enough money is invested in that. And secondly, it's a silo approach that's been taken. A lot of initiatives are doing particular sector knowledge and doing a small segment of the region. But we need a much broader platform to cover all the region, all the topics in a systematic way. And also, the traditional methods of reaching clients is too traditional, meaning that a lot of face-to-face learning, but we're going to go for both face-to-face and also online learning, which can be a much low-cost way of reaching out to as many as, I think, 100,000 people in the coming few years. So CASI has been initiated by Institute of Finance Sustainability, which is my institute in Beijing, and it's now mobilizing participation of more than 40 organizations globally, and it will cover all major jurisdictions in emerging markets, including Africa, Central Asia, ASEAN, Latin America, Middle East, and so on. And this is our track record. My team has been doing this for the past 5 years. In fact, we have gone to many of the places, of your location. And this is the latest one, which we did in Mongolia, attracting 300 people from 30 countries. And the president of Mongolia was with us in this opening of the capacity building event. And currently, we have 7 founding members of CASI confirmed. These are HSBC, Standard Chartered, Hong Kong, MA, Silk Road Fund, Neuberger, CFA Institute, and of course, Institute of Finance and Sustainability. And we have more to come. And we have another 30-something what we call Category B members, which are largely knowledge partners or distribution channels. So that's the beauty of CASI. We group knowledge from all institutions that produce the knowledge, and we distribute through multiple channels, including associations, to all major regions. And that's an extremely costly way of producing content and delivering content than the traditional avenues. And the 4th type of the learning program are being planned. The traditional one is face-to-face. We're going to do major events, a few hundred people in each continent every year. And we will do e-learning program, which is a certificate program, which we learned from CFA Institute. And we'll do something like 100 hours of contents online in the coming few years. and we'll group them into level 1, level 2, level 3 certificate. So once you get to maybe 30 hours, you get a level 1 certificate. Another 30 hours, you get level 2. And completing the entire 100 hours, you get level 3. And I think that these certificates will enable a lot of young people to find sustainable finance job in their jurisdictions. In addition, we're going to do tailor-made events, typically in conjunction with the MDBs, IMF, and so on. And also, we will be doing some special topic theme-based seminars and webinars online. And here are 7 categories of knowledge which we want to distribute. And largely, they are coming from a 5 years experience in delivering the contents. And we feel that these are the ones that's needed by emerging markets, developing country, including way to identifying sustainable activity, disclosure. Of course, we'll be leveraging ISSP knowledge. And we'll be doing a lot on products, green loans, green bonds, green insurance, green PE, and so on. Of course, carbon markets. And policies are very important because it will be enabling a lot of projects to become bankable. And climate risk analysis, carbon markets, and finally, incubating more bankable projects, which is a key bottleneck, I think, in a lot of emerging markets. So we have seen a lot of money complaining about not finding enough of a bankable projects. So origination will be a key topic in our training program as well. So highlights of next year's CASI program, we're going to do 4 in-person events. One in Brazil, which will cover the entire Latin America. That's going to be back-to-back with the G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group in April. One in Asia, likely to be hosted by Hong Kong, and we'll be targeting the entire Asia. And the second half of next year will be covering Middle East and Africa. And we will be doing monthly seminar webinar on special topic of frontier knowledge. And we'll do level 1 certificate from next year, maybe accumulating 30 hours of knowledge and putting them online. And finally, we're looking to work with some MDBs, some other IFIs to deliver training program for their clients. So it's targeted clients co-organized with MDBs. And here's a governance structure. We will set up a steering committee, which will up and running next week. Paul is coming to our steering committee meeting in person, and largely consisting of the founding members plus a couple of Category B members, and they'll be guiding the direction of the CASI. And the secretary will be operating CASI on a daily basis, which will be staffed by IFS in Beijing and Sprinkle Charity Foundation in Hong Kong. And they will run the 4 programs, which will be advised by the expert group that's consisting of members of the our members, right? Of all these category A and B members. And here are the contact information and the barcode, which you can take a picture and look into that with more information on CASI. So with that, let me thank you once again for your support, and looking forward to the discussion later on how the members here are thinking about how to improve our CASI's outreach and effectiveness going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ma, for the very detailed introduction to CASI's plan and also some of its products to be launched in the next few years. So that's the first part of this event. And the next, we are also very honored to have most of our founding members with us today. And I'm very happy to announce that we will have them to give us a few speeches as well. So firstly, let me welcome Jenny McGuinness, who is the Group Head of Sustainability Policy and Partnerships from HSBC. Jenny.
Thank you very much, Li Chen. Thank you, Dr. Marjan, Danny Alexander. It's fantastic to be here, and we are really thrilled to participate in CASI from the outset. We heard a lot at COP28 about the need to increase the supply of finance, and that's true. But actually, we need to increase the demand for finance, and that comes from the boring stuff, the upstream enabling environment, the pipeline development that's absolutely critical and fundamental in emerging economies to ensure that countries are able to access the trillions that we know will need to flow over the next decade and more. We know that those trillions are particularly needed in Asia and the Middle East, and the way that we need to build the capacity building infrastructure, build the institutional capability is with people on the ground who really are known and trusted, and that's why we're really keen to be working with you in this initiative. So this actually aligns with a number of different things that we're doing as a bank. We're a founding member of the Alliance for Green Commercial Banks in Asia. We were a founding partner in the Fast Infra initiative. And obviously, CASI is not new. It's building on huge capability in capacity building. But I think what the value of this is bringing a number of those things together, exploring the synergies, exploiting those synergies, and working country by country to test demand, understand what's needed in each country, because it's different, and then help to provide a menu of options and support to help to plug the gaps in capacity and capability. The final thing I'd say is, what we see increasingly is that there's a risk that countries in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, well, particularly in emerging economies and developing countries, will miss out on market opportunity as Europe races ahead. And it's fantastic that Europe is racing ahead, but we need to continue to support countries to be able to access those markets, to understand what the gap in standards is, to support that harmonization of standards, and that's how we create a race to the top. So we're really delighted to be part of CASI to enable some of this. Thank you so much, and look forward to working further.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jenny. Now let me invite Madam Zhu Jun, who is chairwoman of the Silk Road Fund. Madam Zhu.
Thank you. It's really difficult to find the right place. I rushed to here, and sorry for being late. Actually, I'm very glad to attend this ceremony. And for the developing countries in their transition to the net zero, the lack of capital and lack of inadequate capacity of sustainable investment are two serious problems. And one most severe challenge is the lack of professionals with cross-disciplinary expertise and ESG investment experiences. This highlights the importance of professional, I cannot speak louder comparing with the other side, professional training and technical assistance. Okay. CASI is an answer to the challenge, and the Silk Road Fund is honored to be a founding member. And for us, the SRF has been actively engaged in sustainable investment and governance. Last year, we've set up a so-called Sustainable Investment Committee within the fund, published the company's Sustainable Investment Policy Framework and Investment Exclusion List. We are also working on a sustainable data stream and estimating our carbon footprints. Meanwhile, we've been helping portfolio companies to improve their ESG governance. To enhance the capacity of sustainable investments, we've made efforts in the following three areas. The first one is the capacity building via intensive internal and external exchange of views on sustainable investment. And the second is to integrate sustainable investment methodology into our investment decision-making process in forms of ESG assessment in the whole process. And the third is international cooperation with our key partners for the purpose of gathering information on ESG investment practices and disclosure requirements so as to improve our practices. The establishment of CASI is another critical progress made in promoting sustainable finance after the launch of GIP and China-EU Common Ground Taxonomy. As a founding member, the Silk Road Fund would like to make our contribution in terms of project implementation, technical assistance, professional training, seminar organization, and knowledge sharing. And hopefully, in the near future, all of us can join hands on the platform of CASI and strive for the common goal of green development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Zhu. Now let's welcome Marisa Zhu, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer from Standard Chartered Bank. Marisa.
Dr. Mahjong, Sir Danny, and distinguished guests, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and to also be a founding partner of the CASI initiative. When we observe what are we trying to solve for at COP, what we consistently hear is this mismatch between is there enough capital, are there enough projects, is there enough capacity? And I think the answer is all of the above. But what I also find interesting is when we travel in our circles oftentimes, what we'll find in our markets, and the markets that CASI is focusing on are the beating heart of Standard Chartered. These are the markets where we operate in. We will arrive often with capital in hand, with a pipeline of projects, but they're not executable because we don't have the resources on the ground. And I think this is a real moment for us to address that one of those three challenges. So very excited by this. I think the other key thing I'd point to is the fact that those of us who are practitioners in sustainability, we bemoan the fact that there are so many initiatives that happen in parallel. There are training initiatives, there are content providers, there are over and over standards and so on. But what is clever about the approach that is being taken here is taking what is already out there, the best of the best, from the experts, and bringing it all under one accessible umbrella. And the second piece of that is the inclusive ability to both do it in person, but reach those far away in so many of our markets that do not have the ability to come to get their training in person. So we're addressing what I see as very big gaps in the market. And if I can just share a little COP story with you. This is just today. Today, I participated on a panel which was a compilation of island nations. And the question at hand was, what is prohibiting the flow of capital? Guess what everyone said? Not enough capacity building. That was meeting number one. Meeting number two, I went and met with the world's largest asset allocator. You probably know who they are. They have just raised a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure fund. And what did the one thing they say that we're worried about in terms of deployment of that capital is lack of capacity. Two bookends. Island nations, world's biggest, what are we doing here? We're solving that. So I thought that was a perfect little moment of a COP, sort of intervention that tells us that we're heading in the right direction. So again, very delighted to be a part of this. Also very delighted to be doing this with friends who we respect and that we partner with and we collaborate with, because this is all bigger than all of us. And I think putting the power of our technical capabilities, our financial capabilities to bear, we look forward to bringing those as Standard Chartered to the initiative and seeing for all great success. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Marisa. And we do think that's exactly what we have heard in the past few days since we came to COP. So our next speaker is Jonathan Bailey, Global Head of ESG from Neuberger Berman, and hasten through a video speech. Now let's play the video.
大家好，我叫 Jonathan Bailey, and on behalf of Neuberger Berman, I would like to share how pleased we are to join the Capacity Building Alliance for Sustainable Investment as a founding member. We firmly believe that enhancing technical capacity in emerging market and developing economies is a key component to increasing the supply of investment opportunities aligned with global net zero ambitions. Through CASI, we look forward to playing an active role in helping our clients make sustainable investments and bridging the financing gap to realize global sustainable development goals and climate transition objectives. Congratulations to everyone involved in CASI on the launch today, and good luck.
Thanks very much to Jonathan Bailey and also the good words from Neuberger Berman. Now let's welcome Paul Modi, who is Managing Director of Global Partnerships and Client Solutions from CFA Institute. Paul, thank you.
Dr. Mahjong, Sir Danny, distinguished ladies and guests, it's an absolute pleasure to be here on this platform. I'm probably going to say a lot of the same things as people have said before, working with friends to try and solve a common problem that we're aware of. For those of you who don't know much about the CFA, just let me give you a brief background. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and for the last 75 years, we've been providing financial education to investment professionals. And we're recognised as the gold standard for investment professionals, setting the standards for the industry, improving integrity, improving ethics, and working towards improving the industry for the benefits of society. So there's a very natural link to what we're trying to do here with this group. And more recently, with the exponential growth in ESG investing, sustainable investing, we've been asked to provide solutions in that space. We started with the ESG certificate, and I was really pleased to bump into two people whilst we were talking earlier who are taking the ESG certificate. The two of 50,000 people who are actually taking it, so it shows the interest in this space. And we launched to complement that a certificate around climate investing, around risk, and also how you put that into valuations for as people crave this information. But out of those 50,000 people, guess how many are in emerging markets and developing economies? Hardly any, next to none. And that's why this is such an exciting initiative, to take that experience across research, that experience across our network. We have 200,000 chart holders around the globe. We have 160 societies that are run by active volunteers who want to improve the industry, who want to share best practice, and we want to bring that all to the party. So very excited to be part of this, very excited to be working with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. And of course, thanks everyone to the Category A member speeches. And let's give them another round of warm applauses for the great support for CASI. And with that, let me invite all the founding members to stage, because we do have a very small ceremony to launch the CASI. So I think, let me just try to write Dr. Ma, Madam Zhu Jun, Jenny, Marisa. We do want to do a photo, and shall be a very small launching ceremony. Jonathan is not here, but Paul, yes, please. We have a small video to play to launch this. Now we are formally launched. Thank you, everyone. Please go back to your seat. So we will have to stop sharp at hard stop at 2 o'clock. And since we have formally launched, the next step will be apparently how to implement, how to turn CASI's initiative and vision into action. So with that, we are very honored to have invited many of the important members of the CASI to do a panel discussion to be moderated by Jingdong Hua, who is the Vice President of ISSB. So Jingdong, I'll give the floor to you.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, Dr. Ma Jun, Sir Danny, and colleagues. Let me add my congratulations on the launch of CASI. It's a very simple event, but I think it will make history in terms of potentially unlocking global capital flows for just transition, for transition financing. So remember today. So I'm Jingdong Hua. I'm the Vice Chair of the International Sustainability Standard Board. In our capacity in converging the alphabetic soup of many different voluntary ESG reporting requirements, we are also creating the single global language for sustainability disclosure that will better connect investors and investment opportunities. So with that, I think this panel discussion focusing on the Global South on emerging market developing country is very, very timely. So if I can call the panelists on stage. So Annie from WI, please come on board. We have Mohammed Aurangzeb, please join. Ms. Gikui Niu, Flora Wu, and Lamia Mazuki. And I'll introduce each of you as we start asking questions. Now, I used to be a panelist, but they bumped me down. So instead of sitting in that chair, let me just stand here so you can hear me. So Annie, I'll start with you. Annie is the president and CEO of WI. It seems that this is the only time we can meet each other outside of China. But thank you for hosting us in Beijing when we had our board meeting. So Annie, I wanted to ask you that WRI has been focusing on addressing a lot of transition finance and biodiversity related topics in the past year. How does capacity building, reflected in the work you do? How do you think CASI would significantly, accelerate addressing those issues? So there is a live mic. Don't be afraid of speaking up. Literally.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yes, yes. So I'm super happy to be here. This is a historic moment, as you're saying. I don't have to make the case. So Majun, this is fantastic that you brought us together to do this. Capacity building, I think your story was the best one that you heard today. Just for me, let me say from WRI's point of view, I think one thing is clear in this COP. We are talking about economic transition, right? That's what we need for us to succeed. We are expecting countries to do a lot. We're expecting countries to have the development plans that is not only climate-centered, but also biodiversity-centered. But at the same time, we're asking the same countries to figure out how to protect themselves from billions and billions of dollars of climate-related risks. This is a new world. We are new world of planning. So what we are focused on is a step ahead of this. Before a project can be financed, what kind of plans do Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Planning ministries need to actually incorporate the multiple goals they've been asked to and create financeable plans so that you can actually fund them. So for us, there's a huge capacity gap, not because these countries are behind, because we are asking a different sets of questions from people to do in these different ministries and different private companies. And that is the change of practice that we need to build. That's what WRI is centered about, is what is that practice? How do we build this science together? And we absolutely have to provide the capacity building. But what I think CASI is trying to do is to streamline, bringing from all of us the different things we're doing, that it makes this accessible, dependable, and predictable, so that many people can be trained very quickly in this. I also want to point out the science of some of this is developing, is changing. So we have to figure out how we can train with increasingly new levels of science that goes forward. The last thing I want to say, that project development, which we talk about now, is a critical piece that CASI is trying to do. And this connection between these multiple goals that we have and the project development that's to be developed in that framework is critical. So we not only want to provide knowledge, we're in 55 countries. We have talked about how we could also get CASI to deliver in those countries. So we want to help CASI in both ways.
Thank you so much, Annie. It's all about partnership. It's about holistic approach to address supply side, demand side, and top-down, bottom-up. So thank you so much. Let me move on to Mr. Mohammed Aurangzeb, President and CEO of HBL Bank Pakistan. Thank you for coming. And as a captain of industry in your country, being that bridge, providing finance and to economic development, to transition finance, and what do you view as your top 3 capacity challenges and issues that that Kasi and the partners can help resolve to make your job easier?
Yeah, as you can imagine, in a country like Pakistan, it has to be more than three things. But let me just focus on the three things. From our perspective, as the largest financial institution in the country, financial inclusion is big, right? And that's where digital is coming through. And we were at 12 million clients a few years back. Now we're at 36 million clients. We want to go to 50, 60 million clients so that we can actually get the financial inclusion going. But let me come to the main topic, why we are all here, which is about capacity building and sustainability. And that's where it all comes together. Because as the largest financial institution, we have to go beyond financing. And that's where capacity building actually comes in. And we can talk about SME and agriculture and what we are doing there, but that is a direct linkage into sustainability. And that's where, Kasi and Dr. Majun, while this is a formal launch, we have been a real beneficiary of the Beijing Institute and Dr. Majun's expertise, because we are the first bank in the country to roll out green taxonomy. Normally, it's the central banks which go and take the lead. But, we have to start from somewhere. Which projects are going to be labeled as green? How do we finance them? How do we monitor them? How do we report them? And Dr. Majun, while Kasi has just been launched, in terms of sharing knowledge, in terms of expertise development, in terms of what we are going to do with academia, what we are going to do in terms of collaboration, hopefully under the aegis of Kasi, but we are already beneficiary of your institute and your good advice. And I just want to go back to your point about capacity building, because Pakistan is one of the countries which is obviously the most afflicted, the most affected countries in the world. And what has happened, right? Last year in Geneva, pledges were close to $10 billion. How much of that rescue, relief, and rehabilitation proceeds have come into the country? Very little. And why? Because we have not been able as a country to present bankable projects. And that's where I want to make it very clear linkage, because this is not academic discussion. It's real. It's happening now. And that's where Dr. Majun, being associated with Kasi, we think it's going to be a huge enabler through your support, through Kasi's Institute, not only from a climate perspective, but helping the country in terms of presenting bankable projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. I especially like what you said about capacity building. So bankable project could be created by knowledgeable local engineers, local entrepreneurs, local bankers who know the local condition. And that would make a huge difference. So let me move on to Ki Hwan Neo, our partner also with WEF in terms of capacity building. You obviously have also been advocating for knowledge, for capacity building. So my question to you is that this is capacity building is one of your three pillars for WEF's new climate financing strategy. So please share a few thoughts on challenges and solutions about it, and your expectations on what Kasi can deliver.
Yeah, thank you. First, I do want to congratulate Marcin and your team, right, as well as all the Class A members, right, for actually being so generous with your support, right, and your confidence in delivering this. I think Marissa mentioned this. It really fills a big gap, right? We often hear headline news around how much is the financing gap, but very few headline news around what is the skills gap, right, that is really needed to make sure that that capital can flow. Right, and I think Kasi is really addressing a very critical opportunity, right? Not just a need, but actually an opportunity for the future. When we looked at jobs for the future, actually people with sustainability skills is ranked as high as people with data analytics skills, right? So it is really going to be a job of the future. I wanted to talk about or reflect on 6 C's, right? You've done 3, right? Which is to really bring capital, capability, as well as to build a multi-stakeholder coalition together. So congratulations, right? Where the forum will be very keen to support, together with partners like WRI, is to curate the content, because there's a lot out there. How do we actually make sense and make it simple for people to access and to implement, translate into strategy? That's the curation. And also for the World Economic Forum, we're also very happy to play the role of a convener, right? If we need to bring different partners together and have high-level conversations to unlock access to these markets, we'll be very happy to provide our support and lean in. The last C, right, that I want to highlight is really the role of coordination. And here I think we really need to resource the Secretariat well, right? I think the demand will be immense. There will also be a lot of willing hands to help, and that role of coordination tends to be underestimated, right? Even to pull together an event, to bring different parties together and to coordinate the translation from delivery to implementation is a lot of effort. So I really do hope that you resource up your Secretariat, right, so that you can coordinate all the willing hands and in the various markets where the opportunity is immense to translate this into reality. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Now moving on to Flora Wu, China Country Director, Co-Director of Impact Strategy at CDP. CDP is about data. And among those data, one that is being mentioned repeatedly, relating to our standard is Scope 3. Okay, everybody is struggling, and yet Scope 3 is so important as a measure for investors to make informed decisions in terms of accelerating a transition finance and to net zero. So my question to you, Flora, is that, obviously sustainability data in general is so fundamental, in terms of making informed decisions. From CDP point of view, what are the most urgent challenges in going from where you have already been doing so well for over 20 years to overcoming the last mile challenge, so that we can really unlock in that capital flow, and more specifically, share in terms of capacity that are specifically needed from preparers and users of such data, and how to enhance such capacities.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Hua. As some of you may know, CDP is already the world's largest disclosure platform with more than 23,000 companies disclosing to CDP in 2023, accounting for 2/3 of their global market capitalization. However, I have to say, in emerging markets, I don't think the data is sufficient to help their investors, their policymakers to make informed choice. So I'm happy to share with you, we are conducting an internal strategy program called Pivot to Asia, majorly focusing on emerging markets, which is led by me. Of course, we will, looking forward to 20 years ahead, we will have more resources to help the corporates, financial institutions, and policymakers in China and other emerging markets to catch up with their gap. The capacity building is whatever we are looking forward to do with all various partners here. As Jingdong must know that we announced a partnership during last COP that we will align with the ISSB S2 from 2024. And a couple of days ago, in this COP, we will announce another partnership, which is exactly about capacity building. And I think the capacity building is with many focus in China in the first year, but will expand to other emerging markets. as some panelists have mentioned, we shouldn't underestimate the resources we need, but I think we already have a Pivot to Asia strategy internally. So we will work with various stakeholders to work together on this, to have the disclosure data more helpful, standardized, comparable data at global level to help make informed choice for investors, for financial institutions, for policymakers, for the key enterprises above the value chain, especially as Jingdong know, our capacity building in China will focus on the supply chain members, various supply chain members in China and across the emerging markets. Yeah. So very much looking forward, and the disclosure and data is actually linked to other topics of CASI as well. For example, policy incentive, you need comparable and clear, consistent data to do this. So I'm very glad to be here as member of CASI, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you very much. Look, I mean, when I look at the 7 broad categories of capacity building subjects, our partnership fall under, a subset, but important subset, because, what's measured gets done only when the information with data we can make decisions and enable capital flow. So let's absolutely work on that. Hopefully by next year, preparers will not say that we're still struggling with how to measure scope 3 among many things, right? And that's about value chain so that we can make a difference. Let me come to our last, but certainly not the least speaker, Lamia Merzuki, COO at Casablanca Finance City Authority, and also the chair of UNDP's Financial Center for Sustainability. And certainly, Lamia, you carry the whole African continent, not only Casablanca, Morocco on your back. So the question is very broad. That is from a African perspective, what specific challenges do you see in the development of sustainable finance in Africa, and what do you expect that we can do together, with now CASI's formation? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ma. Dear CASI family, good morning or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of this initiative and to be part of this launch. I'd like to extend my thanks to Dr. Ma and Chengling for inviting us to be part of this initiative as an African representative. So, with regards to Africa, actually the continent there are several challenges in Africa that span from high level to very operational ones. Lack of capacity, obviously, risk perception that can really limit access to finance, poor data quality and availability, and Africa is a continent that includes actually 54 countries with different, diverse levels of development, diverse legal and regulatory frameworks, and so on. So there are many big challenges. The good news is that there is a great opportunity with regards to sustainable development, because Africa is the continent with the greatest potential to make massive leapfrogs. According to the African Carbon Market Initiative, Africa could export by 2050 about 2 gigatons of avoided CO2 emissions. So the continent could really become one of the energy powerhouse. And really, Africa holds many of the tools that the world needs to accelerate this transition and for just transition. But of course, we need to put in place several conditions. Capacity building, financing, technology transfer, and so on. And this is where CASI come into play. I mean, we really need capacity building. It's one of the first pillars to accelerate green transition. So this capacity building can take all the forms that Dr. Ma just mentioned before. It should include all kinds of stakeholders, regulators, industry players, and so on, but also we should figure out how we could empower local communities. So you're right, it should go beyond just sustainable finance, or at least we should think about how we could really empower those local communities for a just transition. And last but not least, we are launching in Casablanca Finance City next year the Africa Finance Institute. So we would be really happy to have CASI as our partner. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Lamia. So now, before closing, let me also share a couple of perspectives from my side. Then I will go back to you, and for each of you to give a final reflection, 1 or 2 sentences. We'll go the reverse order, so think about it. So from ISSB perspective, we were created 2 years ago at COP26, right? Believing that by converging the very confusing landscape of different ESG requirements into a single global language, we can unlock global capital flow. Now, for that to happen, global financial architecture and capital market cannot be impediment. They need to be the enabler. So there are 6 words that I would describe a integrated global capital market that can play that role. That is transparency, accountability, trust, comparability, efficiency, and I'm blanking out on my last word, but it will come back. Last word, very important, mandatory single standard. So that we can, it's not about voluntary, it's about everybody, speaking that same language. So we have just published our first 2 standards in June. And I think the international community supported by G20, G7, Financial Stability Board, IOSCO, have already endorsed us going forward as that single language. For example, Financial Stability Board has decided to close down TCFD Secretariat, passing on the work to ISSB. Essentially, if you report under ISSB, you're fully TCFD compliant, or if you're doing TCFD, you're halfway ready to disclose under ISSB. We made a parallel commitment in terms of, in addition to the climate standard that we have published, that is, we will also commit to provide capacity building with a focus on Global South. Because if after 5-10 years, those who have adopted are all in Global North, we would have achieved the opposite of the public policy goals of unlocking flow to the capital, to the Global South, because investors need data to make decisions. And now it's not even better data for better decision, it's just coming up with data, right, in many emerging market countries. And indeed, developing countries, from regulators to accountants working for companies preparing their financial report, to the market, to auditors, assurers, to financial analysts, capacity building is so fundamental. And therefore, I'm also very grateful for the conversation we have had, discussion, including Dr. Ma Jun with our chair, Emmanuel Faber, in Beijing, that how can we work together, tap into CASI's broad public interest objectives, but also bring in the ISSB capacity building element together with all the partners here. I think that's critically important for us. So let me also salute Dr. Ma Jun for your several decades of global leadership in, in really promoting sustainability, promoting green financing, not only in China, but also, in your co-chair role in G20, and also the fantastic work you did harmonizing European Chinese green taxonomy. And I think CASI is yet another of your visionary conception that will bring a lot of impact, as you have already done. So a round of applause for Dr. Ma Jun. Okay, with that, Lamia, I'll start with you. one or two sentences message so that our audience will go away motivated, but also remembering what we have promised. So next year we'll come back and see how we have performed.
I think the biggest story for Africa is about adaptation. There has been a huge progress worldwide about mitigation, but investing in adaptation is still a problem. And I would like to invite Cassie to think about how we could work on that, work on how we can attract more investments in adaptation. And Dr. Ma, we hosted you in 2019 during the Global Green Finance Leadership Program in Casablanca. And please come again and visit us next year for another GFLP. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura.
Thank you. And I think transparent, trustworthy, consistent, and comparable data is the fundamental thing of the green finance, the sustainable development. This is the first sentence. Secondly, I believe I don't want to mention, because Scope 3 has been mentioned so many times, because the supplier, Scope 1, Scope 2, is exactly the Scope 3 of the purchasers, corporates in the Europe and the US. So when every company begins to disclose according to the global baseline standard, then Scope 3 is no longer a problem. So we are very happy here to work with various stakeholders to on capacity building emerging markets, to help more companies, more suppliers to start this journey of disclosure. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Since I'm on the C track, I'll add one more. So I mentioned capital, I mentioned capability, I mentioned collaboration. I said we need to curate content. We need to convene multiple stakeholders together. And I said the need for coordination, given the huge demand. And the last C I want to say is let's make this catalytic for climate action. Thank you.
Thank you. Mohammed?
So our Minister of Climate Change is here, but I'm very clear it's not the government which is going to lead it. It's the private-public partnership which is going to get things going in our country. And that's where Dr. Majun and with Kasi, we certainly hope we can play our due role on the private sector side to create those bankable projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just think that the economics of the transition, the economic itself is actually quite different, and hence financing of the transition is going to be different. And what is very clear is we need an ecosystem of players, the government, the private sector, entrepreneurs, the regulators, all of them need capacity. So I hope what we're trying to do here, and that's why I congratulate you, Majun, is to the capacity building providers also need to get organized so that it's easy and available in a predictable manner to all the ecosystem. It'll be terrible if different ecosystem players getting different training and different language, right? Yeah. So I hope with your leadership, we can all go behind you and make sure we're getting consistent training across the ecosystem.
Well, that's a great wrap up. So thank you so much. Let me hand it back to, to Dr. Ma.
Thank you so much, Jindong, for moderating this very interesting roundtable discussion. And I personally been so inspired and encouraged by many of your remarks. Let me just reflect on 3 remarks I picked up. One is from Jindong yourself. You said this is not just one of the hundreds of seminars. It can be potentially historical. Indeed, I'm fully confident that we can deliver the training capacity building to a huge number of people in the emerging market space. And we aim to reach out to 100,000 people in the coming 7 years by 2030. So it will be historical because we're going to really incubate a lot of knowledge, a lot of capacity there, and probably potentially can create a lot of leaders in sustainable finance in the global south. And the second remark, I think, is from Jing Hui. You are talking about a lot of talks on financing gap, but not enough talk on capacity gap. And we are going to be there filling this gap. And without resource, without solidarity, and without knowledge, I think we can do the job. And the third remark from Lamy, you said this is a family, which is the best word to describe Kasi. It's not one institution. It's a 40-something institution today, and maybe 50 institutions in 3 months' time, and 100 institutions in 3 years' time. It's a bigger and bigger family, which can consolidate knowledge and distribute knowledge and make the emerging markets greener and in a more effective way going forward. So I will plead for your help continuously, not just one event like that, and congratulating me in few aspects. Number one, of course, providing your knowledge, which you have. And secondly, mobilizing financial resources, which we had from the founding members, but we need more. And thirdly, we need a more distribution channel, including channels such as Lamy is operating. And we need more and more of all of these resources. So for that to work effectively, we need to have a very regular dialogue. We probably be bothering you on a monthly basis or quarterly basis and telling you our updates on what's been done and what we are seeking for. And I'm looking for your constant feedback to us rather than a silent recipient of emails. Thank you very much once again for your support and participation. Looking forward to working with all of you very closely going forward. Thank you.